The man who the cap fits. The true story. A story told like never before. The essential Babangida.
Eventually sanity prevails. Somebody will say, now wait a minute, I think there is truth in here, in there. And I think eventually I do believe the public will...
IBB, the true story. Ikoyi, Lagos, February 13, 1976. A hot, dry day. Loads of artillery and armored vehicles roam the streets. Sounds of sporadic gunfire pervade the atmosphere as renegade soldiers led by Lieutenant Colonel Burkasuka Dinka engage men of the Nigerian army in a gun battle for the control of Radio Nigeria.
The leadership, either by design or default, enjoins other people.
A few hours before, General Moitala Ramat Mohammed had been assassinated in broad daylight in a bloody coup d'etat on the streets of Lagos. Hundreds of bystanders scurried for cover. Rebel soldiers had staged a coup against the 7-month-old regime of the immensely popular General Mohammed. Amid the uncertainty, the rubble and gunfire, stood the diminutive figure of a young 34-year-old soldier, unarmed. He had embarked on a daunting task to stop the bloodshed and thwart the coup that had taken the life of the head of state. That brave unarmed soldier was Lieutenant Colonel Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida. Babangida had put his life on the line to save the Nigerian nation. This young Armor Corps officer reputedly and single-handedly botched one of the bloodiest coups in the annals of the history of modern Africa. That day, 13 February 1976, brought to national limelight the ever-smiling, enigmatic, gap-toothed diplomat soldier who appeared destined to become arguably Nigeria's most revered statesman, leader, soldier, diplomat, and president. The man, popularly known by his apt acronym, IBB. The principal beneficiary of IBB's bravery on that hot February day was Lieutenant General Olusegun Obasanjo, who was General Mohammed's deputy. Obasanjo, via Dimka's treason and Babangida's bravery, immediately became the new head of state. In his book, My Command, Obasanjo described IBB as the most loyal officer in the Nigerian army. The story of Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida is a story that cannot be told in a hurry. It is a story of doggedness and determination, great intelligence, legendary generosity, kindness, brave and courageous leadership. His story is that of an exemplary and loving husband and father, a leader of men and a loyal friend. Born in Minna, Niger State on August 17, 1941, IBB was orphaned at the age of 14 years. Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida joined the Nigerian army at the tender age of 21 and was commissioned in 1962 as a second lieutenant. On August 27, 1985, Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida rose to power as head of state and later president and commander-in-chief of the armed forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. IBB married Miriam Babangida, née Okogu, in Kaduna in September 1969. They were blessed with 4 children. Accused by many, particularly the elite, IBB is loved by many more. Of all past and present leaders of the political and military class, IBB has made more friends across tribal lines, bridging the ethnic and religious divide. IBB is practically Nigeria's human bridge across the Niger. His achievements as president from 1985 to 1993 are the most remarkable by any administration since independence. Perhaps the singular sore point in his tenure as president was the unfortunate June 12, 1993 imbroglio. The June 12, 1993 elections, as well as all other elections conducted under IBB, were universally acclaimed as both free and fair. All the elections were reputedly devoid of the gross malpractices that have characterized elections in Nigeria since the return to civil rule in 1999. June 12 might have been an election without a president, but 2003 and 2007 brought forth precedents without an election. The respected Tafidan Katsina, General Shehu Musa Yar'Adua, once said that IBB had an instinctive feel of politics in Nigeria and appeared determined to put in place a structure that would succeed in creating a new order where the Murtala Obasanjo administration had failed. Shehu Musa Yar'Adua, A Life of Service, a detailed biography and chronicle of the life and times of the revered Tafidan Katsina, and published by the Shehu Musa Yar'Adua Foundation, recorded and interpreted the events of June 12 thus. On June 10, 1993, Justice Mrs. Basi Ikpeme at the Abuja High Court ruled in favor of the Association of Better Nigeria, ABN, an organization headed by Arthur Nzeribe. Justice Ikpeme ordered NEC, the National Electoral Commission, not to conduct the polls. The following day, NEC chairman Professor Humphrey Onwosu countered that Decree 13 of 1993 gave the court no power to make such an order.
For avoidance of any doubt, I wish to restate that the presidential elections scheduled for tomorrow, Saturday, 12th day of June, 1993, will go on as planned.
On the 12th of June, the election took place in a calm atmosphere, but some linked the reported turnout of barely 33% of registered voters to the legal uncertainty. On June 15th, with results from 19 states declared, the ABN returned to court to secure an injunction against NEC from releasing further results. The commission obeyed, although it challenged the court's interpretation of Decree 13, its injunction, and the charge of contempt for holding the election. There was obvious confusion in the nation, leading to a series of objections and support for or against the election. To further add to the confusion, there were a series of conflicting injunctions from courts of similar jurisdiction in Benin, Ibadan, Lagos, to name a few. More so, the political parties did not help matters. The National Republican Convention NRC hierarchy called for fresh elections. Bashir Tofa, the NRC candidate, believed there was clear evidence of rigging in his own state, Kano. In his own words, in these local governments where there are non-indigenous people, the SDP used a lot of money, unquote. It was nearly 2 weeks before an uncharacteristically uncertain Babangida made a broadcast in which he announced formal annulment of the election. IBB went ahead to reiterate his government's commitment not only to hand over power, but also to leave office on August 27, 1993. He announced new elections for July 14, 1993, but the inordinate bickering among the political class, particularly within the leadership of both the SDP under Tony Aneni and NRC under Dr. Hamad Kusamatu, thwarted this prospect. In the narrative of the events, Shehu Musa Yar'Adua, A Life of Service, states, Yar'Adua said in his own words, "The Abiola issue has become the second largest industry in Nigeria, and most people have tried to cash in on it for their own reasons," unquote. Today, as in the past 17 years since the June 12 saga, this assertion by General Shehu Yar'Adua has become apparent. Next was the issue of the interim government, an idea that did not originate from IBB. A meeting of SDP leaders, including General Yar'Adua, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, Tony Aneni, Sule Lamido, Lateef Jakonde, was held at the Hilton Hotel Abuja to decide whether the SDP should contest fresh elections, which had been agreed to by the NRC. Professor A.B. Borishade was reported as saying thus, Jakonde tore off a piece of paper and wrote, "Why don't we try interim government?" He handed the paper to Sule Lamido. Abiola was to be feeded as SDP candidate in the new elections. According to Professor Borishade in an interview in September 1999, we will present Abiola for election in February 1994, which would have been conducted under Chief Shonekon. The following day, the SDP and NRC executives went to meet Babangida. The NRC favored fresh elections. The SDP did not. Babangida said the parties had 48 hours to reach a common position. The SDP called another meeting in Abuja 2 days later, where it decided that pending the remedy of the feasibility of holding an election before the handover date, the parties agreed in principle to the formation of an interim national government and that the parties should be involved in the formation of the ING. A few days later, at a meeting of 24 civilian delegates, 12 SDP and 12 NRC, and 9 military officers, the composition of the interim national government was crafted. The rest is history, as General Babangida, in line with his pledge to the nation to hand over to civilians, handed the reins of power on the appointed August 27 terminal date to Chief Ernest Shonekan. Sadly today, IBB is being held hostage and vilified by the political class who were the principal actors of the June 12 melodrama. As a man of destiny, one not afraid to make decisions and take responsibility, IBB has risen the storm of June 12 with the candor and demeanor of the statesman and leader. In spite of the pockets of isolated criticisms of IBB's tenure as president, not even his most ardent critic will doubt or deny that Babangida's footprints are etched in the sands of time. A peaceful palace coup had ousted the General Muhammadu Buhari regime on August 27, 1985, and Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida took over as head of state. General Buhari and his deputy, Brigadier Tunde Idiagbon, ran a reputedly authoritarian regime with the Nigerian state under siege. Buhari had little response to the nation's economic problems as thousands of food queues formed all across the country. On taking over, IBB set to give Nigeria a new political direction. He set out to create a new society. His government was one and same time a reformist government and a transition government, pledging to return to civil rule at the end of 1992. Babangida immediately abrogated the draconian Decree No. 4, a military decree of Buhari Idiagbon that was designed to muzzle the press and repress press freedom. He also initiated a national economic debate and laid out a blueprint to revive the economy. Within a few years, IBB charted a new course for Nigeria at a time the ordinary citizen yearned for respite from the Buhari years. He immediately gave a boost to primary health care. He liberalized the banking sector and established the People's Bank with the late welfarist Tai Sholari as chairman. He established the Federal Road Safety Corps with Nobel laureate Professor Wole Soyinka as chairman and Dr. Oluwagunloye as chief executive. IBB had enlisted the best of Nigeria's civil society in governance and charting a new course for Nigeria. Dr. Kalu Idika Kalu, Professor Jubril Aminu, Professor Aliu Babatunde Fafunwa, Professor Olikoye Ransom Kute, Dr. Iwanu Lukman, Olufalaye, Professor Samu Yowaire, and Professor Omo Omori, for whom he set up the Center for Democratic Studies, Nigeria's first reputed political think tank.